I am excited to be here today at State of Search. I hope you guys are all excited for a presentation on how to troubleshoot some of Google My Business's real world issues that a lot of people face when they're working with Google My Business. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, a little bit about myself. I am Sherry Bonelli, owner of Early Bird Digital Marketing. I am a Google My Business Silver product expert. I also have my master's degree in internet marketing, and I have been doing digital marketing for 22 years. I do a lot of public speaking at industry events like Traffic and Conversion Summit, State of Search, obviously. I do a lot of webinars for digital marketer and Local Marketing Institute, as well as other industry webinars like SCORE. I do writing for Search Engine Land, SEM Rush, Search Engine Journal, Bright Local, lots of industry websites, and am very engaged within the SEO community. So I'm very excited to be here today, but we're short on time, so I'm going to get booking along with this presentation. So everyone knows how important it is if you do local SEO to show up in the local 3-pack. If you are doing any type of local SEO to compete, you really must show up in the local 3-pack by Google, or at least in the local finder. That's not as ideal of a spot to be, but if you can show up in the local finder, that's the next best place to be. Now, one of the best ways to be there, obviously, is using Google My Business. Google My Business used to be a lot simpler. It used to be name, address, phone number, and it used to be less complex. But right now, to be honest with you, over the years, Google has gotten more and more features, and it's made it more complex to use for business owners as well as for agencies. And by adding all of these great new features, it has become a little bit more difficult for people to use. There's been more issues that come from using it. But just look at some of these great new features like categories, posts. People are able to add attributes about their business. There's new COVID health safety attributes that businesses are able to use, like whether or not their business allows people to wear face masks or requires people to wear face masks when they come to their business. You can write business descriptions. You can upload videos and pictures. All of this makes for a very, very robust Google My Business knowledge panel that really allows searchers and visitors to see so much information about your business. So that is amazing. Just by doing a search, people can find out a ton of information about your business, and that's amazing and gives your business a lot of visibility on search. But along with that, the more features that Google My Business gives you, the more things that can go wrong, to be honest with you. And since I'm a Google My Business Silver product expert, I'm on the GMB help forum a lot. And that forum is full of a ton of questions that people have. Some of them are business owners, but a lot of them are also agencies. So whether you're a business owner attending State of Search or whether you're an agency, hopefully you're going to get some information from this presentation on how you can solve some of Google My Business's troubleshooting issues that we see a lot on the forum. So we're going to learn how to solve some real world GMB issues today. The first one is suspensions, and suspensions can really cause a lot of havoc for business owners and anybody that has a GMB profile. The first thing people usually ask is, why did my business get suspended? And that's usually the first thing people try and figure out is what causes suspension, because Google does not tell you why your listing is suspended. And I will tell you that in all likelihood, you're going to face this issue. If you haven't had your listing suspended yet, chances are you will get your listing suspended at some point. So pay attention. If it hasn't happened to you yet, chances are it will. So when your profile gets suspended, you need to really put on your detective hat and try and look at your info section in your GMB listing and figure out, what am I doing wrong, or what have I done wrong? What might have happened? So be sure and first of all, check the info section in your GMB dashboard and also look at Google's guide for representing your business. And the link is down here. carefully look at that information and kind of backtrack and figure out what might I have done to cause or trigger the suspension. Now, on the screen, you'll see a list of some really common reasons for suspensions. Some of them include keyword stuffing your business name, setting up a PO box or a UPS address. If you set up a listing that has a virtual office, because you know what? With Google Maps, Google knows where those Regis offices are at or where those virtual or co-working offices are at. So they're going to, in a lot of cases, bust you for setting up a virtual office. If you have a service area business and you're displaying a physical address, that violates Google's terms of service. So that could be a reason. If you have a URL that either forwards or redirects, or if it links to a social media page, that could be a problem. If you change from a storefront to a service area business, that could trigger a suspension. If you're an online only business, or if you're in a high risk category like attorneys, plumbers, HVACs, locksmiths, that can sometimes trigger automatic suspensions or recurring suspensions. If your hours don't match your website or other online directories, sometimes if you list your business as 24/7, that can cause a suspension. So there are other listing issues that can cause suspensions. So you really want to go ahead and basically backtrack, look through what you might have done, what you might have changed, and figure out what is the issue. And that needs to be resolved before you submit the reinstatement. Now, we're going to go through some kind of examples of what people have done to cause suspensions. So, in this case, you want to always use your official or legal business name. So, in this example, Florida Executive Realty, that's the right way to list your business name. However, in Roll Realtors example, they added Cedar Rapids office. And that's wrong because you cannot add any additional words to your business name. So in that case, they got suspended for doing that. So when you're filling out your business name, don't add any additional keywords. Don't add your city, don't add any descriptor words that describes what your business does. Don't add a city name, just go with your business name. So we're going to look at Kriesman Law Office's medical malpractice lawyers as an example, for instance. That's not the real name of that law practice. So if you backtrack and do a little investigative work, you'll find that on their website, it's Kriesman Law Office. Now, they do have medical malpractice lawyers, but that's really a descriptor of what that law practice does. That's not their legal name. Because if you go to the Illinois Bar Association, for instance, their real name is Kriesman Law Office. And the same thing, if you look at other online directories or even this lawyer's LinkedIn page, it's Kriesman Law Offices. And so again, that's why this business got suspended, is because they misrepresented their company name on Google. Now, if you're a practitioner, like you're an attorney that works for a law firm, or you're a doctor and you work for, a medical office or a hospital, for instance, you can only use your first and last name. You can't add any additional words. You can't add the law firm or the medical practice's name. And so that's another reason I see a lot of realtors get suspended because they add the word realtor, for instance, after their name, or they add the word attorney after their name. So, from Google's own mouth, basically, the title of the listing can only be the practitioner's first and last name. So, these are just some more examples of potentially why your listing could have gotten suspended. Now, if you're a service area business, you cannot display your physical address. So if you work out of your home and you're a locksmith or you are a plumber, for instance, and you go out to people's homes to do service to at their house, for instance, or their residence to do your business, you can't have your address listed because Google doesn't want somebody's home office to be shown on Google's map. And so in that case, if you have your address displayed, you are going to probably get suspended at some point. So no PO boxes, no UPS boxes, no virtual offices, unless you actually have a dedicated space with a permanent sign outside your office. You have your employees working in there during stated business hours. So there's rules attached to those types of things. So, be sure and follow those rules. So, for instance, in this case, this business got suspended and they couldn't figure out why. But when I did a search for their address, I realized that they were leasing just a shared office space and they didn't have anything dedicated. So that was why they got suspended. So we often see business got suspended, and I don't know why. We were doing everything perfectly. But again, in a lot of cases, in this instance, this business was working out of their home. But when I searched for their new address that they listed on their Google My Business profile, again, I could see that that office was a Regis office and they didn't have dedicated space there. So that was why their listing got suspended. And here's another example where, DBAT, their signage doesn't match their business listing, which has the city name listed. So there's lots of examples, and you can usually figure out what you did wrong just by reading the rules, understanding them, and kind of backtracking. And again, here's another example of a storage facility. They don't have an office there. They don't have employees there. So, if someone drives there, there's no one there to help them. So they can't list their physical address. And additionally, they don't have permanent signage. They just have like a plastic banner, and that doesn't count. So, there's lots of different reasons why businesses get suspended. The trick is going back and figuring it out. Okay. So if you do get suspended, Google doesn't tell you why, but what you need to do is figure out what the issue is, resolve that issue on your listing, and then you need to fill out the reinstatement form. Now, you want to be careful that you have all that resolved and that when you submit the reinstatement form, you submit proof that you are a legit business. So whether that's submitting photos of your permanent sign, whether it's submitting your business license, whether it's submitting your, your insurance paperwork to show that this is your legal business name, your address, those types of things. That would be great. Also, keep in mind that if you get a suspension, it's likely that you're going to lose some photos and maybe review responses along with that. Okay. So be sure to ask yourself if you get suspended, what did I change beforehand? What triggered that suspension? In one of my instances, my landscaper client, we had just claimed his listing. He had his home address listed. I deleted his home address and was going to change it to his service areas. And the minute I changed that and changed the service areas, we automatically got suspended. And it was just kind of an automatic thing because I changed from an address to a service area. So you just never know. You want to fix what's wrong before you file for a reinstatement and submit proof that you're a legitimate business. Don't create a new profile because that's just going to really kind of mucky things up. So don't create a new profile and do not submit more than one reinstatement form. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is how anyone can change your information. So you want to get in the habit of checking your Google My Business information to make sure it's accurate and that nobody has messed with your business name, your website address, your hours, your phone number, because people can go in and make those changes without you even knowing about it. So anybody can suggest changes to your listing, and sometimes those changes go live without you even realizing it. So anyone can change it. And sometimes you don't even know about it ahead of time. So I'm going to show you an example of one of our local high schools. They actually had someone go in and change their website to a porn site. And that actually stayed live for about 24 hours before the school realized that their website was changed to a porn site. Now, all the kids knew about it, but the school didn't. And so that's something that could easily happen to your business. So you want to get in the habit of checking your website regular, your GMB listing regularly, and making sure that no one has changed any of your information, because it's very easy, for instance, for a competitor to go in and change your website address to their website address or your phone number to their phone number. Now, these edits are sometimes just suggested edits, and sometimes Google will check those edits and not make those changes. But in some cases, depending on the authority of the person that's suggesting the changes, sometimes those edits happen right away. And so it's very important for you to log in and check your listings as well as your clients' listings frequently to make sure no shenanigans are going on. So, in this case, you can see that an edit that I suggested went live. And in many cases, the edits that I suggest go live almost immediately. Sometimes they don't. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time for Google to verify those changes. So just be sure and check your listings frequently. So now we're going to talk about picking categories because choosing the right category is very important to getting found for the right keywords, getting found on local search. So it's very important because categories can directly impact rankings. So you want to choose your categories wisely. So one thing you want to keep in mind is categories matter, but you can't control search results. Okay. So we have a lot of people that say on the help forum, for instance, in this case, I'm an HVAC, but we also do electrical work. And whatever I do, even though we have electricians as a category, I can't show up for electricians in my city name. So can I just set up, 4 businesses and have a separate category for each one? Well, no, you can't do that, and so of course you need to tell people that you can't do that. You cannot set up separate listings for each service that you offer, obviously, but categories do make a difference. Okay. So you want to pick your primary category and make sure that that is specific as possible. Make sure that that one describes your business as a whole. And then pick maybe 1 or 2 or possibly 3 other categories that fit within the type of business that you do. Don't add too many extra categories, if you don't have to. But the other thing is remember that you can change those categories. So, for instance, if you're not ranking well for one category, you can always change your categories. So, for instance, in an HVAC company, for instance, during the summertime, you may want to list that you do air conditionings as your main category. But in the fall and winter, you may want to list that you work on furnaces, for instance, and list that as your main category and kind of mix it up. Landscaping, that might be the same thing. You might want to change it to snow blowing during the winter if you live in Iowa, for instance, and do more of landscaping work and lawn mowing in the summertime. So, those types of situations, you can change up the categories. There are literally thousands of categories to choose from. You can't create your own category. We hear that all the time. My obscure category isn't available. Can I make up my own? You can't. So if the category you want isn't available, pick a more general category that describes your business. If you add or edit a category, just know that you might have to verify your business again. This helps Google confirm that your business information is correct. Okay. Now, practitioners and business owners of those practitioners, keep in mind that you may have your search results filtered. And what that means is if someone does a search for law firms, for instance, or divorce attorneys, for instance, your law firm and your practitioners may not always show up in those search results. So sometimes what I recommend to those types of practices, for instance, like let's say a lawyer, maybe the law firm has law firm as a main category, and each individual lawyer, if they have a specialty, for instance, if one is family law, maybe that attorney has family law as their main category, and another attorney maybe has divorce attorney as a category. And then that way they have a better chance of showing up for various search terms, depending on what those search terms are. So, for instance, this is a way of varying some of the categories of the main business and the practitioners based on both divorce attorneys and law firms and medical, for instance. It just gives you an idea of how you can pick more specific categories based on what your area of expertise is. So it may be a good idea to niche down and maybe pick different main categories depending on your practice and that type of thing. Also, depending on your business category, you might see special features available to you. So here are just some of the special features that you might get based on your category. Now, there are some GMB category tools that are very useful. Pixel Cut Labs has a great list that you can download. And then Plepper, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, also has a categories tool as well. So there's different features that are available based on which categories you select. There are also some Chrome extensions so you can see what competitors' categories are. And that is a great way for you to see what categories some of your competitors have selected. Now, if your competitors are up to no good, here's are some tips you can do. If your competitors are name spamming, you can do what I talked about before. You can suggest your own edits for them. So you can go in and click on the suggest and edit link on their knowledge panel. And as you can see, sometimes the edits take effect almost immediately. Sometimes Google needs to review them, but you always want to make sure that they're legitimately violating a rule. Don't just go in and report a bunch of your competitors just because. Now, for instance, if they have a fake address, that is something that you can go on Google Maps, for instance, click on their link, suggest an edit. And for instance, if they have a residence, you can mark it as a private place or home. Here are just some of the suggestions that you can use. So if the suggest and edit doesn't work, you do have another option. You can actually fill out what's called a redressal form, and there's a link to the redressal form. The redressal form is a much more official way of filling out a complaint about a business that is spamming or violating Google My Business's terms and conditions. Why did my post get rejected? We're seeing this more and more. So Google used to allow phone numbers and URLs in the body of a post. They are now not allowing that. So we're seeing a lot of rejected posts that have phone numbers and URLs in it. Also, don't include emails in the content as well. Also, don't include any offensive words or images. So, this post, for instance, got rejected because it had the word booty in it. Now, booty just happened to be the name of the band that was playing at a bar, but nonetheless, it got rejected because booty can be a sexual term, and Google finds that term offensive. Now, the other thing is, in this case, tool can be an offensive term to Google. And my question was, this post could have been rejected because the word tool was in it. So here's a link to post guidelines, and I recommend that everybody check those out. Don't use offensive images. If it's offensive in any way and it gets rejected, swap out the image or carefully look at the content and make sure that there's no offensive words or anything that it might even suspiciously look offensive. Okay. We're going to talk about how to merge duplicates because we're running out of time here. So I'm going to kind of book through this fast. And duplicate listings can be kind of confusing. So we're only going to talk about storefronts. If you have a service area business, I would recommend that you go to the Google My Business help forum and talk to one of the Google My Business product experts about your situation. Duplicate listings are kind of confusing. So I just kind of want to touch on this here. Can be some different scenarios, but briefly, if you get a duplicate listing notice, Google will typically let you know that. Sometimes you may not even know that you have a duplicate listing. So maybe you created a listing a long time ago and you didn't realize it. Maybe you have a different variation of the name. So if you find you have a duplicate listing and they are the exact same name and address, first of all, if they're in your dashboard, and this is a scenario we're talking about here, you have to unverify the listing that you want to get rid of. Okay. And I know that sounds weird because people are like, I don't want to delete a listing from my GMB dashboard. But you need to basically unverify it because Google can't merge two verified listings together. So you have to own both those listings before they can be merged. Okay. You also want to copy what's called the CID numbers of both listings. And then I also recommend that you go into both listings and also when you're in the GMB dashboard, copy the URL of each of those listings as well and save those in a safe place. So copy the GMB listing when you're logged in, and then also the CID number. And I'm going to show you some tricks on how you can get the CID number in a minute. That's basically an identifier for each Google My Business listing. Okay. So make sure you copy those, put them in a safe place. And then to delete the one listing that you no longer want, you need to sign into Google My Business, click on the info tab, click on the listing that you want to remove, the one you don't want any longer, and click remove listing. But no, before you do that, if there's any reviews that you want from that old listing, you need to contact Google My Business support and have them move those reviews over from the listing that you no longer want to the listing that you want to keep. So you have to do that before you remove that listing from your dashboard. Okay. And then once you have any reviews moved and the listing you don't want any longer is unverified, then you would contact Google My Business support and explain that you would like those two businesses merged together. Give Google My Business support all the details like the business name, address, the phone number, the CID number, the dashboard URLs if you have them, and then be sure and tell them exactly which listing you want to keep and which one you no longer want. Okay. So as far as getting the CID number, there's a Chrome extension called Company Information in Google tool. And that's a really handy tool to actually use, a Chrome extension to actually use to copy the CID number. So that's a tool that I love to use. And you can use that Chrome extension to get any CID number for a Google My Business listing. So we're right at there. Okay. I'm booking along. Hopefully, you guys are getting a lot of value out of this. What do you do if you have issues or questions with your Google My Business listing? First of all, right now, the only way to reach Google My Business support during COVID, and this is a wacky time, I know, is through email. Okay. So I have the email support listed here, and that's the only way you can reach Google My Business support right now. But you can also often get questions answered by going to the Google My Business help forum. Okay, there's product experts like myself, and there's also other volunteers that go there and will answer questions. Now, we don't always have all the answers. We do our best, and we are volunteers. We're not Google employees. We volunteer our time to help out people. So be nice to us, please. But we do monitor questions. We answer questions that people have. Some people are able to escalate things to Google. We're able to be in touch with Google employees if we have questions. So it's a great place to go if you have additional questions about what's going on with your Google My Business listing, or if you have additional questions. So feel free to go to the help forum if you have any questions as well. And that's a great place to go if you have issues with your Google My Business listing. Okay. This is my contact information if you'd like to reach out to me, if you have any questions about Google My Business, or if there's anything I can do to answer any questions. And then I guess we're going to open this up to questions that you might have about Google My Business. I want to thank everybody here for coming to the session, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Thanks.